So I've been experiencing this existential despair or dread or like a form of nihilism for many years now, at least since 2019. That's when I remember having these episodes and thoughts. So that's, 2026? That's 7 years now. And I had a bit of a realization around this yesterday that I wanted to talk about. And I find it ironic a little bit that I chose to talk about existential dread on my birthday today as I'm turning 52. But hey, interesting, isn't it? So yesterday on our regular call with Bernardo Kastrup, or I was watching a recording, and there was also Rupert Spira, the spiritual teacher. So they received a question from a person around exactly the same thing, this existential, he called it rapid onset of nihilism because for him it was rapid, but for me it has been around for a very long time. So if you can't relate to this, probably it's not going to speak to you, but I know many people can, so I'm sharing here in case somebody is where I am or was until yesterday, and I want to share my little insight around that. So I'm not talking about nihilism in the sense of the normal physical experience and everything related to life and, what's the point? 500 years from now, nobody will remember me. 5 million years from now, the tectonic shifts, the plates will move and everything will be erased. So what's the point of all of this? I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is this, what's the point of life? Why am I here? Why am I here as an individuated, objective mind, separate for a little bit of time from mind at large or nature? What am I doing here? Why am I stuck in the 4 dimensions? And I know that dimensions are all a mental construct. There are no dimensions, but just for the question, why 4? Why not 20? Why not 1,000? What else is out there? This is becoming boring to me. Why should I sit through that in decades? And I don't want to check out from here, so I'm gonna sit the decades I still have left. But these are the questions that I'm talking about, nihilism in this kind of sense. And so the person asked the question, and Rupert Spira gave this a bit of a mental exercise where he said, for the objective mind, the individuated mind, the only thing that the mind can have is objective experience. And in the sense of having only objective experiences and not being able to have anything else than that, the mind cannot know what true mind is, mind at large, the mind of nature. And the only way for the objective mind that can only reflect on itself from the perspective of experience, which rumination is a form of experience. The only way for the objective mind to get to the bottom of the story is to take things out. In other words, to say what it's not and to keep saying what it isn't until it gets to the bottom. So I'm not this body, because when I was a child, I had a different body. Also, all my cells have been replaced multiple times. Even the neurons, they don't get replaced as cells, but the atoms, the individual constituents of the atoms, the subatomic particles and their constituents, they have been replaced gazillions of times. So in a sense, even my neurons are not the same. So what I had when I was a child is no longer the same. I look different. Everything is different about me. I'm not this hand because, yes, I can, it seems attached to my body, but I cannot have a perspective on the rest of my body from my hand. I can only have a perspective from this viewpoint here and look at my hand. And yes, it seems to be a part of my body, but obviously it's not me. And so we can keep answering what I'm not, neti from the Eastern tradition. I'm not, we can even say, I'm not my thoughts. Because when I fall asleep at night, and I go into deep sleep, apparently I'm still there, but I don't have thoughts. So obviously I'm not my thoughts. And somebody will say, well, how do you know? Can you check on yourself when you're in deep sleep? I can't. And I had the same question, but I know of experiments where they've put people to sleep and they waited for them to get to deep sleep, and they wake them up and ask, were you there? You know, what was happening? And people would say, yeah, I was there. I didn't have any thoughts. I didn't experience anything. I was just there. I was just there. But they didn't say, oh, I was completely gone. They said, I was there. And so we know that we're not our thoughts. So anyways, the exercise goes all the way down to the void, the nothingness, and that's the unsettling experience. Okay, so obviously I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm just this experience of not experience. I'm just this awareness that has experiences, and that's all I am, right? And so everything else becomes nothingness. And Rupert Spira said that's what's bringing the despair and the depression, the experience of, oh, it's all a void, it's nothing is there, and at the same time everything is there. And I sat with that and I reflected on it, and I didn't feel that was explaining my existential tiredness, the despair that I've felt for many years, episodically. Yeah, I get that when we keep softening this ego structure and we kind of remove the boundaries of it by going not this, not that, not this, not that. We get to this point, and it could be depressive, but that's not how I experienced it. That's not that didn't connect with me. And so I sat with that. I said, so what is it then? What is it that I'm really experiencing, and why is it so tiring for me? Why is it so exhausting or exhaustive? And I realized that for me, it's just this boredom in a way. My main question seems to be, well, why do this? Why do more of this? Why sit here for decades when I know the answers are not available to me from this subjective mind? What's the point of all this? Why is universal mind doing me as a human doing? What's the game that it's playing? And I know that I will not be able to have these answers in this experience of being an objective mind. I've given this analogy of mind at large, or mind of nature, being this bottle of a fizzy drink, and I'm just one of these, fizzy bubbles that shows up for a little bit of time. You are too, and then we pop and we go back into where we came from. But I have all these questions, and I also know that I won't get to any answers, because the answers, these fundamental answers, are not a part of this game, and that is very unsettling to me. And I know that there is a reason for my human experience, but I will never know what that reason is. But I'll be sitting here for, if I'm lucky, for a few more decades, and I'll never know that. And that is very unsettling to me. That is my experience of this nihilism, or this existential dread and despair. And so now I'm getting to this insight that I had. And it was hinted by Rupert Spira again. He said, well, there are all of these moments that are equally valid as experience, and the experience being this rumination, this reflection, this going in and getting to that point where we visit this room in the palace of mind, to use Bernardo Kastrup's terminology, where that room is the nihilism that we experience. But it's still a room. It's not all the mind. And I know I'm not experiencing that all the time. In fact, I experience it only when I have time to experience that, when I have the opportunity to experience that, when I introspect, reflect, when I ruminate. And there are all these moments in life when I completely get carried away, when I experience love towards my son, when I'm fully engaged with him, when I experience sadness, sorrow, all of these strong emotions. I'm completely removed from that. I'm fully into the experience. When I work and I realize that, wow, maybe that's why one of my main escape routes is work, because it saves me from the time to ruminate and to go in. It completely removes me from that space. Also, when I experience flow, which sometimes I experience when I work. All of these and many more completely remove me from the experience of this nihilism. And so then I had the insight. And I have to pre-qualify this a little bit, but I like to do mini dosing of psilocybin mushrooms, magic mushrooms. I grow them myself, and so I cultivate them for myself. But anyways, when I do that, I have a lot of thoughts. I maybe have even more thoughts when I'm in the experience of a mini dose of mushrooms. But I'm not having this existential dread. I've had this on regular dose of mushrooms, but not on a mini dose. And so what this made me think is, wow, all of this is related to this activation or overactivity of what neurologists call the default mode network, the default mode network, DMN, right? Which is this collection of regions in the brain that's associated with the experience of I and me. In other words, the ego, the story of self, this main narrative that each one of us builds their entire life around. All of the downstream stories come from this I and me and the separation that we feel from everything else. So when we ruminate, when we have time to go in and stay in, that is when this default mode network is the most active. But we also know that it isn't that much active when we're in flow, when we're in the experience of something, when we are planning, when we're goal-oriented and taking action towards a goal. All of these take this default mode network somewhat offline. So we're in the experience of whatever we're experiencing, but we're not in the experience of what was me and what's happening and all of this. But psychedelics do that as well. And so my experience confirms that. And so that's a part of the insight. And the other part is, okay, I said, the experience of existential nihilism is just one of the experiences, and it's completely valid. It's okay to experience that sometimes, just as it is okay to experience everything else that's available to an individuated, objective mind, separate mind, for the time that it's separate from its origin. Because there is a reason for that. I just will never know that reason. It's just not part of the game. And I get to sit with that and be okay with that. And be okay with the whole thing. Yes, I will experience this nihilism and this existential tiredness and dread, just like I will experience the love for my son, the love for beauty, the love for the whole human experience when I get fully involved in that, and everything that comes with it. And so, yeah, this must be a part of the game, including experiencing this nihilism for those of us who get there. As long as we don't indulge too much in it, and as long as we don't dread that it's there, and it's a normal part of the human experience.